I do stand up in a sat down position because my legs hate me.
Yeah, I'd be going up to people and they'd look at you and go, okay, how pissed is he?
You were pretty much, if you weren't scared about it looking like sort of a hate crime for beating up a disabled, you would strangle me with the mic cord. That's the only reason I'm still alive.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for joining us again this week. We have got a very, very special guest brought to us by our good friend of this show, Ben Shevlin, one of our hosts. He has invited the one of the funniest guys we've seen doing his thing on the stand-up circuit. Sir, would you be able to introduce yourself?
I can try. I'm Jonny Brook. I do stand up in a sat down position because my legs hate me, and that's the only real way that I can tell the lovely people in that particular room about how much my legs hate me and how funny that life is.
Okay, excellent. So if our audience members don't know, Jonny has a disability. So we're going to be exploring that today in today's show, kind of how he lives with that, his comedy approach to it, the good and bad points, and just hopefully enabling those of you with disabilities out there to get a bit of insight in how someone copes with it and look at the positives and hopefully look at the funny side of it. So, Jonny, can you just tell us kind of what is your disability?
It's basically there's all the nerves that connect your brain to your spine to properly run your legs and how they should do what they do aren't there. So as far as my brain's concerned, it said left, right, up, down, and as far as my legs are concerned, it's like, give us a clue, dickhead. What are we doing? So I basically look like sort of Peter Kay doing a tribute to Kevin Spacey in The Usual Suspects in terms of the size of me and the state of the walk. So I think comedy became one of those things where, because a lot of people like looked at you and their eyes asked questions that their mouth wouldn't, I thought, well, I've got to find some way of doing like a reply to all email that explains what the actual deal is. So yeah. I don't really know how to do that. And then the idea of the stand-up came along, and obviously I put it off because, you know, most of the set's about the fact that I can't really stand up. So once I worked out that places have stools and that you can sit on them to do this, then I thought, well, let's give it a bash. And it's just kind of weirdly grown quite nicely from there.
Absolutely. So, is it something that you were born with that came at a later stage, and how and kind of if you can give us your background into comedy as well?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because you're born with the gene, but the textbook says it's not supposed to kick in symptom-wise till you hit like mid-50s, 60s. And it's the weirdest thing to boast about, but what I can legally say is, because my spasticity gene is so big, I'm a study project at the University of Sheffield because they're trying to work out quite how it is I'm this broken. So it's kind of weird when you just realise initially that your legs aren't really behaving, and it's almost at the start like, you know, when you've had pins and needles. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you get to that other side of it and they're just not quite responding to what it was like. Why is that feeling lasting for days rather than 20 minutes? Right. I don't understand why it's doing that. So you start talking to medical people, and because the symptoms are so bizarre and so rare, I saw a lot of blank faces and confused looks, and just thought, well, this makes as much sense to them as it does to me. But
Okay.
someone cottoned on to what this rare condition is, and suddenly I got filled in on why it is that I walk like I do. So I think, as I say, just because you end up in strange scenarios when you walk as oddly as I do, you seem to draw strange stories towards you in terms of how people interact or talk or look at or literally just come at me without even talking to me and just immediately assume that I've wandered away from a care worker and I need guidance getting back to it. It's like, no, honestly, my legs might be bad, but I can use metal cutlery. It's fine, honestly. And you want to be grateful that people care, but because they're so, in the nicest possible way, patronising in how brutally they care, it's just like, and this is why I don't leave the house, because when I do, this madness happens.
Okay.
So I think from a sort of a therapy perspective, the stand-up works well on that front, because if I say go out back in the olden days when outside was legal, you get approached by some random stranger and the events that pan out seem too strange to believe. But when you then turn that into, say, a 2-minute bit of material for a set, and you say that to a room full of strangers and get their reaction to it, it's like, oh, so it is mad then. I wasn't spoken for thinking this is unusual. Their faces are telling me that this is very unusual. So it's kind of become an accidental safety net for me, that whenever I have rooms full of strangers that I can keep occasionally sort of inflicting these stories on, it sort of keeps that context and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it is weird, it is strange, and the physical side is often significantly painful, but the emotional boost you can get from turning it into these positive little tales just sort of gives us that balance to it all.
Absolutely. Is there any advice that maybe you could give to any of the listeners that are maybe not in a an environment where they can express that, like stand-up comedy, i.e. they're just a normal worker or maybe on benefits and they're at home? How do they get to that positive mode?
The only thing I can say, just purely on my process through it, is it's almost sort of a letting time do its thing, because if you're having your moment where you feel either through the pain or just the way you feel outside in the public for the way that look and act towards you as you're milling about normally in society, they aren't things that sort of quickly disappear, and they are things that will, as they did with me, knock you back because you don't immediately see what you can do to make that feel any better. So it's a case of, as and when you have your bad days, finding those people that you can sort of turn to, just explaining that although it might have happened 3 times the week before, it happening today is something that is just like, as an accumulative thing or everything else that's going on in life, a thing that feels more than you're comfortable with. Just having that someone that you can sort of relay that to, who can just join you in being upset at the way things are, and just sort of bring things to a level where you feel less on edge about things. And again, just purely from a personal experience, the more you do that and the more you get other people's perspective on these things, the more those perspectives kind of come to you. Then the next time it happens, you've got those words and thoughts in your mind, and it's almost like more of a tidal wall to stop these waves coming in as quickly as they did before. But as I say, that's for me. I appreciate everyone's different in their approach to that, but for me, that was the sort of the way to try and deal with it then.
Can I just say that I do almost exactly the same. obviously we're in a different boat in terms of the way it affects us. But yeah, I mean, from the beginning after my brain injury, people always coming up to me, or more to point, actually, I'd be going up to people and they'd look at you and go, "Okay, how pissed is he?"
Yeah.
Sometimes
That
I was.
always the big. It's like
Yeah.
when you see almost like a parent putting their arm round their child because you're 10 yards away and obviously
Yeah.
you're a danger, and it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
just I don't get how me being me outside is seen almost as dangerous as like a moped on a pavement. It's just sort of it's a bizarre thing to get your head around, and that was like the thing that used to drive me mad more often than anything else, was just that, in terms of I don't really want to be bored enough to be stopped every 10 yards to answer why I'm walking like this, but I'm also really bored of being looked at like
Yeah.
I've been in a Weatherspoon somewhere since 1997
Yeah.
and they just kicked me out. It's like,
Johnny,
no.
can I ask, what do you think's going on there then? Because I'm totally alien to this. So I think, most of us are totally alien to this. So a little window into that. When you're walking and or whatever and strolling about, or people stop you and ask if you're okay, or what you talk about extremities there. Can you think of any like specific real extremities where you're like, right, I'm using this in my fucking set because this is mental?
I've quite a few. I mean, one of my favourites was I went to go to the shop round the corner from me, and as I'm walking towards it, I could see there's a guy stood outside it, and Gypsy is written through him in everything he is and does. So I thought, right, I'm going to have my coat pocket.
Travellers.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't work out what word to use. I'm just thinking, right, go for the typical one. And I thought, right, what I'll do, I'll unzip the pocket that my phone's in, because at least then when it gets robbed, I'll not have my coat damaged as well.
Fair enough.
So he then starts approaching me, and I'm thinking, be brave, don't cry, it's insured, you'll get through this. And so he just puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, can I ask you a question, big man? And I'm just thinking, yeah. Have you ever considered asking our Lord Jesus Christ for help and guidance on the clear physical problems that you have?
Wasn't Tyson Fury, was it?
Yeah. No, I mean, if it had been him, I'd have just joined him in prayer there and then. But it's the fact that I'm then stood against the wall on a Sunday afternoon where all I want is Jaffa cakes and mushrooms. I'm having to say a prayer to a God that I've never really believed in, with a random stranger, that my legs will be fixed in the coming days. And I'm just thinking, why do I come outside?
So lockdown's good for you, yeah? You're enjoying lockdown. Yep. There's always someone who's enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Training for self-isolation.
Johnny, sorry, one of the points that you said there about kind of you like to vent about that on stage and that kind of thing is that we all talk about comedy and how it's difficult to develop a voice and that kind of thing. And I guess in a way, have you got that voice then? Have you got a reason why you're on stage and stuff and it's quite clear that this is part of what you're going to do in your comedy? You feel like that's there straight away? Or do you like to be, want to be bigger than that, obviously, in some ways?
It's a bit of an odd one, because the actual reason that I eventually got round to doing comedy was I grew up with a cousin. We were like the same age. And right from being kids, she were like, no, it's not a case of if you do this, you are doing it. And proper chips and chips and chips at me, bless her. And unfortunately, cancer decided that it was having her. And it was seeing how bravely she took that on right through to the end. And I'm thinking, what justifies me being scared of like 20 people not liking what I'm saying if she can laugh at the effects of what's happening to her? That's like completely robbed me of any opportunity to get away with not doing this. So my first ever gig, I literally wandered into the Verve in Leeds with no idea what I was going to do, and I just thought, right, I'll talk about my legs. That makes sense. And just did that for I don't even know how long, but it was just that weirdness of just hearing like those waves of noise come at you from a crowd that is absolutely howling at how shocked you were to be having a prostate exam when you had no idea you were about to have a prostate exam. And just sort of, it's like if I'd been aware that was the appointment, I just would have not turned up to it. Because I'm like in my 20s and naive as I am hefty, I just genuinely had no idea what was happening. So even when it's like lay on the bed, lay on your side, knees into your chest, I'm thinking, well, I don't know what any of this is. And then suddenly you realise too late what's happening. And it's when you sit in this dark room full of strangers and suddenly you see their reaction to some story about that. And it's like, well, okay, this is, unlike me, got legs that work. I can sort of not make everything about that, but if I use it quite often as like the launch point into other stories, then it kind of helps mesh things together.
Yeah.
So it plays well that way.
Have you got so you straight from the first gig to now?
Yeah.
Always goes down well. Your favourite joke? It's pretty dark, I know, knowing you.
I know, it's just the weird one is because I literally I went into that gig with one joke written about what a poor adult I am.
Okay.
And I said, if you wanted a measure of how poor an adult I am, it's that I eat fruit and veg about as often as you imagine your dad eats your mum. Yeah.
Every day then?
5 a day.
5 a day,
yeah.
So yeah, for some reason it was like when that did to a room what it does, it was like, hang on, I might not actually be out of place here, because if the one thing that I wrote is having like that impact, what might I do if I actually properly sat and tried to string some of these stories together? And it's just, I think from like day one, that seems to be the one thing that from then is still like dropped in where appropriate, because you know how with some rooms it's obvious that it's like salad at a barbecue, it's just not going to be welcome. It just it has to be kept away because they won't take it, so you sort of keep that one back for a shinier event.
Do you find any are there any venues you've done where they're just not friendly, disabled friendly to get on? I know one place, but
there's a few where it's like, wow, I literally have like risked life and limb. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get out having got in, and there's 3 people here. What have I got dressed for this? But I think it's one of those like catch-22s that there'll be some lineups that will put me on just because I like group-wise add balance for me being in the lineup, and then there's other places that when I've been on, because they will then be aware of me being a potential fire risk with the layout of the building, no matter how well I've done, you ain't coming back. So it's kind of this blessing and curse kind of thing in terms of doors it open and doors it sort of bolts shut. So it's a tricky one to sort of try and balance out, that one.
I mean, the worst one for me is at the place I met you at the Frog and Bucket in Manchester.
Yeah.
There's 4 steps and no handrail to go on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute. It's fucking ridiculous because they've in the toilets there. They're so proud. They got a picture of Brian Potter on that stage.
Yeah.
He's in a fucking wheelchair. How the fuck did he get there?
Yeah.
He takes a piss.
It's weird because, like, while there's a building, you're spot on, but the staff are just so lovely in terms of being all they can to help us off and on alive.
Yeah.
They're lovely on that front. But like you say, the actual building, it's like, really?
Yeah.
It's not like they're just sort of 4 general steps. They're so steep, it's almost like a spirit level that somebody's put triangles on. It's sort of like that. It's sort of this is not a staircase. This is why I die.
Yeah. It did used to be a Weatherspoons though, didn't it? So
this is it. I think ever since I got my precious little blue key that opens the so your legs are shit toilet.
Okay.
I've kind of been grateful that even in Spoons, those toilets are pretty local. So I tend to get a bit like sort of Robin Hood on that front and just sort of share that key with others so that they don't have to walk 2.5 miles to.
Can I borrow it, please? Wait, I can borrow it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cheers.
I saw you in you was on a competition in Stoke, wasn't you? It was like a gong show format.
Oh yeah, that one of Spiky Mike's.
Yeah, and I remember because you were in the clap off, and you had to do another 60 seconds or something like that to persuade the crowd that you deserved to win. I remember because obviously you came on, then you came off, and then you got through, and then you'd have to go on and then you'd have to go off and then go on again. And I was thinking, this is not friendly at all.
It's just weird. I remember because I got completely thrown off anything to say or do all night, and by the time I went back out, I had genuinely no idea what to say. So I just remember saying that about, is there anyone in from the social? No. Right, well, I'll stay stood up to do this then.
Yeah, you did.
But like I said, I know the last who won it, from like a comedy perspective, when you know you're on the same lineup as her, you stop like watching things on eBay that you're going to spend the winnings on because she's part of the lineup then.
Is it Anna Sparks?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. She was. I mean, them lads that were there, they were ruthless, weren't they? The ones that were drinking, and she absolutely nailed them.
Yeah, because it was such an education that because I'm talking to her like before she's gone on, and in the gap between when we've been on and going back up, the way that her mind processes who's there, what they're like, what to do to put them in the place, it was just like that machine level thinking that is like always 4 steps ahead of everything. It's like I'm doing well staying awake, let alone getting ahead of where we're at. And so it's like one of these things of watching her at work and thinking, credit to you, missus. There's some special gears in action on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Who are... Sorry, but...
No, it's all right, go on.
No, I was just going to ask Jonny, who we've got kind of a rotating question that we do like to ask guests in terms of the comedy background. But who are your 2 comedy heroes? Who do you kind of look to as your comedy icons?
Well, I mean, the first one's easy because if it's not Billy Connolly, then I haven't really paid attention because he is just the absolute king.
Yeah.
Truly is. But they do. No, I'm pushed.
We can revisit.
Oh no, what's his name? 8 out of 10 cats does countdown.
Jimmy Carr.
No,
Jimmy Carr.
Oh no, Sean Locke.
That's the one, Sean Locke.
Yeah.
Sean Locke. Billy Connolly and Sean Locke. So we've got Billy Locke.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, there's just, I mean, I know they're so oppositely different, but there's just something about the souls of both of them that's like, yeah.
Can I just say, you got that Sean Connolly doing much better. Got that really red.
Yeah.
Jonny, you mentioned about your disability, and I was just wondering, was there a moment, or was it more progressive with the condition? Was there a big moment in your life where everything changed when you were diagnosed with anything? Or
initially not, but what's probably happened over the last, say, 4 years or so is the way that I walk has put so much pressure through certain parts of the left foot that the fifth metatarsal basically had like a gap that you could put a micro machine in. I just sort of wore the middle of it to the point where there were nothing there. So
did you have the same injury as Wayne Rooney going into the World Cup?
Yeah, but he just did the light version, bless him.
Okay.
Strong, like damage it as badly as I did.
Fair enough.
So because that's been like 3 operations since then with varying levels of metal that I still walk so badly. I've like broken titanium, which is a skill I've not worked out how to put on LinkedIn yet, but I'll find a way at some point. So I'm currently sat with some massive, great platform boot thing on that foot because they've had to literally restructure everything from the shin down to correct how I walk and the damage I've done by how I walked.
God.
So
it may seem like a silly question, Jonny, but is it quite painful? Is it quite a painful condition that you have?
It was at times because where I'm sort of, without sounding like sort of a martyr to it all, so used to like day in, day out pain of it, you just kind of get tuned out to it to some extent. So when something then comes along that's extra to the pain that you're used to, it suddenly like switches all the senses onto it again, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is the ow. Because particularly at the latter stage of the other one, I'd walked some bolts loose in the plate they put in, so that was then like digging into soft tissue around it, and it was like, that's why it even hurts to lay down. Then I understand that now. I know where this pain's coming from. So there's times like that where it's like, is this really worth the free money every 28 days?
Does it frustrate you to hear people when they just like, when we moan about our like little day-to-day gripes, like, oh, I stubbed my toe, or I've got a headache or a migraine, or I can't stand it.
What I always feel bad about is like someone will come visit me and they'll be talking about exactly that, like earache or a headache or a migraine or a cold, and it's like, last thing I should be doing is moaning to you of all people about pain, and it's like, I don't have a monopoly on it.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be in pain too and talk about it. That's fine. Mine might be a bit worse than yours, but yours still matters. And it's weird how like guilt works, that people like genuinely feel that for talking about themselves, and I'm like, no, don't be daft. That's just strange.
While we're on the subject, I just want to tell you about me hip. Hurt me hip. just flinched it a bit. Oh no, I don't want to mention that for you, John.
Yeah. Well, I've actually got this really long hair coming out my nose, and my trimmer, the battery's gone on my trimmer, so it's just caused me no end of. I'm just emotional.
I know where the battery's gone in your trimmer, mate.
Get up your ass. Anyway.
Trust me, as we're all laughing to bring it fucking down again, though. Yeah. But I just want to pull us back onto pod subject for 1 second there, because I can't resist. So when we talk about physical pain, I always kind of like think about the mental side of it as well. So how does that kind of manifest itself? And is it a similar kind of thing? Does everybody want to save you and talk about it with you?
It's where comedy is like a blessing and a curse, because there's sometimes where like the emotional boost I can get from like being short-term loved by strangers for talking about the physical issues, it's like the greatest painkiller I can get, because it just does something that takes my mind away from what's happening physically, and it goes away for a bit. And it's like, I know you're trying your best ibuprofen, but you can't do it as well as like the laughter of strangers does. But then there'll be some gigs where the effort to get there is horrendous, and you get there and suddenly realise like there's 3 people, or the crowd that are there are wanting just pleasant, light-hearted, fluffy stuff, and not necessarily the dark things that I say. So you've gone through all that, you're at the venue, you're doing your set, and you're aware that you are not welcome there, and it's like that then becomes almost like a double hit, that you're in the pain you've been in to get there, and then your mind is running at 1,000 miles an hour about what did we do this for, why have we bothered, what have we. So for the times that it's good, it's a boost like nothing else, and then when it isn't, only on the short term, thankfully, it kind of hits you from both angles, and it's like for some reason you feel the pain more because you haven't had the boost to lift you up through it.
What's the worst gig you've ever done?
Oh, there's a few. There's a few.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I did one. The other sort of darkness, let's say, is I talk about the benefits of like the condition, and I explain that one of them is that I've spent longer on the sick than Maddie has on Portuguese landfill. Now, that is literally 60 seconds in.
Yeah, I remember that from Beat the Frog, yeah.
Yeah, so when you then get that reaction of just glares,
yeah,
nothing but polite British hatred.
Yeah.
The times where I've done probably 3 or 4 gigs where you get that reaction and it's like, oh, I'm in trouble because I don't have anything that's, do you remember cider lollies?
Yeah.
I'm in trouble here. It's just like flying through my brain. What is like the grey rather than the black material I can churn out of this to try and avoid actually being ragged off the stool they've given me to sit on. So yeah, they've couple of times in Manchester, once in Liverpool, they just outright, the reaction were like, okay, can I just go now? Because it's not only that you're not laughing, the eye contact tells me that you were pretty much, if you weren't scared about it looking like sort of a hate crime for beating up a disabled, you would strangle me with the mic cord. That's the only reason I'm still alive. So yeah, there's been a few like that where it's like, oh, this isn't working.
I've had reactions like that, and I don't tell a joke about Maddie McCann. Yeah.
I just remember I did a charity one in Leeds, and that was another one where they reacted just as badly to that. And I just thought, that's it. You know what? For the way tonight's gone, if I never hold a mic again, I'm not bothered.
Really?
And within about 3 days of that, I did Hot Water in Liverpool, and then I did my first Manford's Comedy Club in Matlock.
Oh yeah.
Same set, and it like went through the roof in both places. And I'm just thinking,
yeah,
I thought Brexit was like the definition of people not knowing what they wanted, but it turns out comedy is a pretty good example as well.
Yeah, definitely.
If I'm saying the same words in like 3 different rooms, how can the reactions be this different?
Yeah.
Is that a Save the Children benefit gig?
It was a Madeline McCann fundraiser.
I could have understood why they hated me so much, but it was that realization that I'm like, oh, Yeah, you really are here just to raise money for a lovely charity, aren't you? You don't want some dark-minded soul sitting here thinking about things that I'm saying. So I think I myself kept my set to like 5 minutes and just went. So I thought I don't need to say the stuff that I know they're gonna hate, and anything I can put in, they aren't gonna like now, just for how much they hate me for Maddie. So I'm going to go away and drink my watered down Diet Coke that I got for performing today.
Yeah.
Try and get out alive.
I'll be honest with you, I think this is the longest we've had talking about charity competitions without Ben asking this question.
Johnny does my gigs. Well, he's supposed to. Yeah. But someone let him down the lift last time.
They did. It was a bit of a body blow on that one because it was like literally the Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I got a message off the Scott Wilde to name. Yeah. I got a message off him saying, "Oh, my girlfriend's just told me that we're going on a trip to the Lake District." Like you didn't think of that before. Yeah. Fuck's sake! On the morning of.
Yeah, it was just like everyone I knew that could be both funny and drive was busy, and I know some people who can drive that think they're funny and didn't want to taint your night with them. So I thought, as much as I would go to miss out, I would rather you get other people in than me bring that kind of person whose set can have like a fire alarm impact.
Don't worry, it's in a loft, so
yeah,
it's a dangerous place anyway.
There's I like a bit of danger.
That offer is always there, though, Johnny. I know you turned me down, but stepping outside of comedy just for a minute, then you talked about like rough gigs and all that kind of thing, and obviously we talked a bit about the condition. So, what do you do outside of comedy when life gets shit? How do you deal? Have you got coping mechanisms that you deal with?
Yeah, I'm lucky that do a lot of stuff like this just to sort of keep my head ticking over and laughter being heard. I have a now adult daughter that appears in quite often in my set because she is spitefully so funnier than I am. So just spend a fair bit of time just literally savaging the world with her and just literally roasting people that are either in the same room as us or just randomly popping up on the telly. So just sort of little things that just sort of never really require us to be coherent for that long, because with my majestic drugs that I have, I'm not relentlessly awake. It's finding little things like that, and eventually when the dust settles on this rebuild, I go back to having a day job that is software testing, so that's a bit different to everything else I've done.
Okay. You were game as well then?
Desk. I've got bad internet history. No, I don't want to look at my computer. Just saying.
Do you do computer? Are you a gamer or anything like that then at all, or not? What are your hobbies?
Oh, sorry?
What are your hobbies? Do you game or anything like that as well then?
I play FIFA very badly. Which is why I let my online access lapse, because I just got sick of getting battered by everyone that I came up against. So at least if I just play it on my own, then it's sort of less painful losing that way. I bought a guitar on the premise that while I was housebound I were going to learn how to play it. But I also bought it in the right colour that it could look like a decorative piece in the bedroom, so that it looks like that. So that was quite grown up for me. But no, it's a lot of things where I end up in like lots of little writing groups where we all just talk about random things, and then I might luckily get involved in helping somebody else write stuff for their set or projects that they're putting forward. So little things that just give me opportunities to sort of crank the mind and get it working how I want to say the kind of thing they're getting across, and just these nice little involvements in sort of little projects that keep you ticking over.
Right.
I've got Johnny on Facebook. Who's this girl from the Derry Girls? Is it Derry Girls? It's always popping up on your Facebook. I don't
basically, I watched it first time around thinking, well, this is pretty decent, but I don't know if it's incredible.
Okay.
And then I watched it again where codeine wasn't my designated painkiller and actually paid attention to it. It's like, oh, this is funny. This is impressive. And then, like, the announcers, like when you're actually watching it live rather than streaming it, they said something about the fact that she was like 31.
Right.
Okay, I need to now pay specific attention to her because how I haven't, as angry and sceptical as I am, questioned why a woman in her 30s is playing a school kid. Something needs investigating. And once I investigated and realised not just to look at, but to stalk via all available social media, she is as interesting to know as she is happy to look at it. Well, like, yeah, this is. I'm not going to put it as a hobby because that would get me arrested, but it's certainly a very interesting pastime.
Yeah.
Well, it is for me at least. Anyway, I dare say it might be quite boring by now for the. Oh Christ, he's on about it again.
I just wondered where it came from. I've seen
it just genuinely, because again, as you'll know through Facebook, I can quite often go through spells where I'm literally allergic to sleep, and I've run out of everything else to do and look at. So it's like I've completed eBay, completed Amazon. I've got the certificate from Netflix for completing that. What more can I do with my time? I'll get politely obsessed with an Irish lass off a sitcom because
sounds like a plan.
That's
pretty safe, isn't it? Yeah.
Are you in a relationship now, Johnny? How relationship's been for you in the past?
Horsey.
I've got a lot of marital stories that they'd be a really, really, really good set, but unfortunately I got told that you don't speak ill of the dead, so that scuppered that material. Modern story, I genuinely don't know on the relationship front because I haven't been told I'm single, but I haven't been told anything by them in about a month, so I'm letting silence tell me what the words are.
Well, hopefully this Men Don't Talk podcast might give you some answers.
Yeah.
Now, Paddy, before we was kind of setting up for the show, Paddy has some really good questions just around your thoughts about things like the benefit system, NHS. How have you been treated in the system? Because your condition is quite rare. It's not it's not something that's commonly seen. So how have you found you've had treatment and you received?
The two government entities couldn't be further apart in terms of attitude and treatment, because within the NHS they're first to know more about me, the condition, how it affects me, what the impact of it is, any assistance I can do with. That is relentless, whether it be from the physios I have visiting daily now, the consultants who are ridiculous in their weird science levels of trying to restructure what they can to improve all they can within me physically to carry on as best I can with the condition.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't love that anymore if someone offered me money to. The benefit side, obviously, I'm grateful for its existence because that money and how it supports the extra cost of life that you have with the impact of this condition, it makes it possible to carry on doing. But the attitude towards those of us claiming it under this government seems to get harsher with every passing year.
Absolutely.
The forms and the assessments and just little things like the place where I had to go for an assessment previously, they have one disabled parking bay there, and it's deliberately at a distance where if they see you walk from the car to the building unaided, you failed your assessment before you've even sat it.
Wow.
Because they will put word through of how far you walked without
assistance.
Because it's literally there as we aren't here to support those that need it. We're here to justify cutting it off, regardless. And when you sort of see how that mentality is applied to, we aren't interested in helping. We are purely here to see how many we can justify culling, and it's such a nasty experience, because you just know there isn't a second of it where you can just sort of relax and talk openly, because the questions are sort of layered within layered, and it's almost like they're offering you an opportunity to say A, B, C to the first question, X, Y, Z to the second, and create a gap they can attack you through if you aren't focusing like fully on exactly what to say and do. It's just such a shame, because I know they've got to take some measures, because obviously there are some people that are just trying to exploit it as I worked for a couple of weeks in the 90s, I didn't really like it, I just like an easy life now. Yeah, stuff like that does need to be treated, and credit to them for trying to tackle that. But because they've gone so broadly across everyone, it leaves you basically fearful, because even though mine's a degenerative condition that will only get worse, and they have that in writing, they simply won't allow that to be the ruling decision. That is like, well, fair dues, with every day you are going to get a bit worse than the day before, but we're still going to ask you 2.5 years down the line to justify why you should still get this.
So have you had a lot of help from the NHS over the years?
It's been a bit of a tricky one, because of this government's funding of the NHS, the last 2 operations, unfortunately, I had to do privately through work, because just the waiting list on the NHS, I've still been waiting now for the first one, let alone for the other one I've had. But it's kind of a weird scenario of I've met the surgeons and consultants who've gone forward and done this incredible work through the NHS, but I've had to basically book them privately as a means of getting it done.
Yeah. So, do you hear about the Captain Tom who he went under the lash? I mean, that's incredible.
It's one of those. It's almost too beautiful to be real, because you have to pinch yourself and think not only the beauty of him doing what he's done and the reason for which he's done it, but that people are so rightly so in love with both him and the cause he's raising the money for. We're all just sort of throwing
12 million, something.
I think it was 14 earlier today. I mean, it said a lot that it took me genuinely 6 attempts to donate this morning, because the Just Giving page couldn't deal with the demand to donate money.
It's absolutely beautiful, and I'm quite a cynical old soul sometimes, so I'm a bit like, why hasn't Branson got involved? Why hasn't Sugar got involved? When a bit of me is just like, do you know what, Dalu, shut up and really appreciate the positive and the actual joy that he's putting out there, and just embrace it.
Completely with you on that one. It's like when you've got Hancock laying into like Premier League footballers as if their wages are a crime, and it's like, well, there's lots of people that earn many times more than they do, and you don't seem all that interested in pressuring them. But
it's funny that the Tory government don't take any money away from the bankers, isn't it?
Oh,
that's strange, that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's I can't really say anything about that without just like endlessly swearing for quite a while. So I'll just smile politely at that.
Yeah.
Jonny, you know you work with the NHS. Have you ever had any kind of support in terms of mental health? I just wondered, because we've spoken with Ben before, and I don't think, Ben, you got any support, did you, from that regard?
I could have had counselling, but
you could have.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, So they've certainly hinted at the availability, but because I've always sort of erred towards, I have this sort of weird others before me mentality in terms of, I know there'll be times I'm not at my best and that maybe such appointments would help me feel as good as I should do. But because my family has had quite a few mental health issues within it, and I know how much they suffered and how difficult it was for them to get appointments for help with that, I kind of see it as, if I'm clogging a queue up for people that may need this more than me, I'd rather step aside and leave the room for them to get this than me.
So does that take you back to what you said before about who you have around you? Because in that moment, if it's there, it needs to go somewhere, doesn't it?
This is it. It's again, where I'm probably grateful on the comedy side of things is because a lot of the people that I've met while doing this are people that are either getting over mental health issues that they've had, or they're still dealing with them and using comedy as a release to it. There's so many people who are fortunately sort of at ease with sort of their mind and, for the want of a better phrase, their symptoms. And we talk to each other quite a lot away from the stage and away from the venues about how the rough days hit you, and just sort of that way that sometimes where, and I know I'm one of these people, the idea of having to sit across from a stranger at a desk with a notepad and degrees behind them, the pressure I put on me to justify that time means I'll hold back on saying this, I'll say that instead, I'll not quite get it as it should be and use that opportunity properly. Where if it's people that I've known, say for a few months or years, that you can talk like we are now and feel much more open about addressing what you're feeling and what you're thinking, I tend to get the responses to that sort of help keep me in the space that I should be in. And then I obviously try and do that where I can for the others that will point out to me that they're feeling that life's sort of attacking them from angles they weren't expecting, and just sort of finding a path to help guide them back to that sort of brings them closer to the place they want to be.
I think that's literally what I think. I don't know about the lads, but that's exactly the sort of thing that we would hope people would be able to develop and achieve. This is what this is all about, isn't it? This podcast.
Yeah, no, it's clearly doing fine work on that front, because I think anything, it's sort of that weirdness of like just the pressure valves in life that while ever you can sort of turn them often enough that it stops that build up that causes the explosion, it is half the battle. And if you can keep finding your little releases that just keep the engine ticking over at a healthy rate, then you're doing it right.
Yeah, I think everyone finds their own way. I've just written down community there, and that's a really interesting take. We've had a few people come back and say obviously different things, but the fact that you've kind of managed to find a community that's helping you out and stuff sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah,
you've got that. Do you mind if I ask when life does get really shit like that, and then we can get back more onto the comedy stuff? But who is it you confide in? Who are your confidants in terms of when life gets really shit like that?
Sort of two different angles. There's the daughter, because we are so similar, it's ridiculous. So quite often I might only even need to make a noise and she'll immediately know where I'm at and sort of how to bring us around, and vice versa for her. But also I've got sort of a car share group on good old Facebook Messenger, and the two or three of us that are in that, we sort of have that as a running release where we chat daily, and particularly during the isolation, the amount of nights a week that we'll do a video call just to purely, it could be anything. It could be like one of the lads were venting about the fact that he's better off that he thinks the absolute world of. Just literally the fact that she were reading out from the Sky News app on her phone were like pushing him to the point of absolute mental collapse. And it was just like, he says it's the most ridiculous thing that any other time would not bother me in the slightest. But because I've been in this house for 11 days, it's like I'm being kicked in the kidney. And it's having these little, be it typed out rants, normal just like group call or the actual video thing, and it's these every couple of days just getting the good news out there for anything that you somehow managed to arrange for the future during this madness, or venting about the current and the impact it's having on mind and soul. It just sort of keeps us all, if not happy, at least.
Absolutely. We've actually got a segment on the podcast, Johnny, called "What Gets on My Moobs." Is there anything that's kind of got on your moves over the last kind of week, last couple of months?
I never thought the letters BJ would annoy me.
Right, Andy, when you edit this, repeat that. Can you just start again? Sorry, Johnny.
I'm not, no editing. My BJs have disappeared as well.
There's something about, well, him first and foremost, but also how people are like so desperate to defend what they think he's doing and the results that are coming through, and how somehow he's supposedly resilient and incredible and wonderful. And it's like, no.
But
I'm with Johnny. I don't want him to go. I don't want him to pass away from it. But come on, we're pretending like he's a national hero now. It's as if like if Trump got it, would they suddenly be triumph for Trump?
Absolute nail on the head. I do not like him. I do not consider him a beneficial human.
So I
wish anything on him during this, or anyone, to be honest. But it's this weirdness that even now you've still got people going, well, at least it's not Jeremy Corbyn that's making a mess of it. I'm like, the election was like 5 months ago, and for some reason it's like, well, I'd rather have Boris in charge making a mess of it than an IRA sympathiser. And I'm like,
it's nuts, isn't it? When you think about it, and they're all going about, they say about you can't spend public money. You can't, to that level. It'd be craziness to spend public money like that. If Corbyn had got it spent all, and now because of our situation, we have to spend public money, and everyone's going, well, that's okay. Yeah, well, that's fine. We need to do it.
Exactly. It's just like,
Richie Shuttlecock's chucking it as crazy, isn't he?
Oh, he's just, it's mental. It's like, I really, really love the old guy we mentioned earlier, and the fact that it's now 12, 13, 14 million. But at the same time, it's like, why? Why is a hero needing to do this and the nation need to back him when this government is like, but we gave you 20 quid yesterday. What do you want it for? Can you not use that bin bag again? It just,
it's like they're telling the nurses be more careful with their masks and stuff. So don't make sure you're a bit more. I don't know. Don't use as many.
Where I started getting fully aware of how bad this is was because I have like nurses that come on a night to help with a few basics.
Oh yeah.
When they started walking in with like the mask on and gloves on and aprons, and I'm like, oh, so this is actually happening then.
Yeah.
This is genuinely a thing. And it's like, okay, So this has now been an issue lockdown-wise for how many weeks in a week now?
Three weeks.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that we're into this third week of lockdown.
That's his fourth week now.
Yeah.
I thought it might be. The problem is I've literally been on lockdown for 12 weeks with this surgery thing. So I get lost in this, what's been my lockdown and then the national lockdown, where the two meet. But it's how long there's been a need for this equipment and how recently they've started having it to where to come in. And it's like, okay, so how long has it taken them to provide you with this? How long have you been visiting me and other people with no protection whatsoever? And you are going, could be 20, 30, 40 houses a day with nothing to protect you.
Absolutely.
And yet the government standing there every day saying there's no one doing more than us. So when you then get visited by the evidence that they aren't doing it, it's like, how are they getting away with masquerading as a caring, thoughtful, helpful government when...
Well, they just make a charade out for themselves, don't they? Because, you know, they say one thing and do another. They say stay in and then go to the second homes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just craziness.
I had a lovely weekend in Fife a couple of weekends ago.
I've got a boobs for you, Dalu. I was having a Twitter war this morning, totally different subject, but it does come round to COVID. Mick Ferry texting about what we should be watching during COVID. Twittering about what we should be watching during COVID.
Yeah.
Fucking go on Twitter war this morning with him that we should be watching The Wire and not fucking some shit that he's saying. It's gotta be The fucking Wire. And people slagging The Wire off gets right on my fucking tits. And I know you're there, Dalu.
No, the Wire is in my top five. That I guarantee you'll enjoy. If you haven't watched it, definitely get the opportunity to watch it.
You need to sort yourself out on that because it is. Our Mr. Simon is just a genius of putting words together. He makes everything kind of pop out and make more sense than it ever should do.
Yeah,
it's a next level of genius. So yeah. That needs focusing on for anyone that's not seen it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think his was Breaking Bad, and I don't know. I prefer stories about ordinary people rather than look how extraordinary this guy is. Like, me, it might as well be like Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever. I quite like Breaking Bad, but The Wire is just ordinary, deep characters stuck in their lives. It's fantastic. That's what I would recommend for COVID for people that are stuck there. Anything else you'd recommend, Johnny, for anyone that's stuck at home and looking for something to watch or listen?
I completely forgot how ridiculously fit the finance expert on the newsroom is. And when that randomly popped back into my memory the other night, I downloaded all 3 seasons and I've been enjoying that greatly. I would say I've enjoyed it greatly as an incredibly well-written drama rather than just being a little deviant staring at a pretty lady. So as a drama goes, it's definitely a one to watch.
Yeah, since season 1, it's good. It's a good one, that, isn't it? It's a good one.
Can I tell you, I've had a great week. Beginning of the week, I was on.
Here we go. He's gone already. Come on.
I was on iPlayer, BBC iPlayer, and I always watch the news through iPlayer. And every time you put it on, it says, do you want to watch from the start or do you want to watch from the beginning? And usually I'll say, I'll watch it live. Do you want to watch it live or from the beginning? But on Monday, I thought I'll choose from the beginning. So I've been back in 2007. It's been a couple of weeks, been great.
Johnny, there's always a portion in the show where we call it Ben's rant. And that usually indicates that we're nearly at our end. So before we do kind of wrap up, is there any questions that you have, Ben, Paddy, or Andy for Johnny?
No, Johnny, the other way around, whichever.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, bless you for how well you've explained everything across. I am a satisfied guest, so I'm good on that front.
You can recommend it to any of you, anyone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we need a lot of different guests.
Yeah.
I would ask Johnny. I'm always aware when we get someone on who's got a story, and I'm always aware that people may listen to something like this who are going through something that may be of any kind of similarity, a trauma in their life or whatever. So, what would you say to a younger you in that kind of position? If you...
Just to sort of really trust yourself, and the bad times, they can't follow you forever. They will at some point get bored, and they will give you the respite. Because I remember there'd be times where, I'll be honest, it was like walking from work to the station and be like sat on a canal wall just crying, because it was just like, not only like the pain of doing it, but like we were saying earlier, the reaction to strangers and just the way they look at you like you're wrong, you're broken, you're just an absolute shambles. And it's like, all I'm trying to do is get home from work. I don't want a medal for that, but I don't need this reaction to it either. And for the damage that had and the way that it makes you feel about, do you even deserve to try and be normal? It is, from my experience, unfortunately, part of almost like that, for want of a better phrase, transition from normality to disabled. There is no way of like rolling the dice and skipping that stage. Unfortunately, you have to find your way through it. But again, sort of talking to a younger me, I'd say probably what I'm doing now in terms of talking to other people, do that sooner. Don't wait until the bad times are sort of hitting you more often than the good times before you start talking about that, because it's probably the one thing in hindsight I didn't do. I just kept pretending everything was just going to get better. If I do the same thing tomorrow, it'll be the same, but it'll feel better somehow. It doesn't. Unfortunately, you can't change the deal you've got. What you have to do is try and find an approach to it that helps lessen the impact of it, and think, whether I can do that now, be it through friends, be it through the NHS, be it through comedy and stuff. At that stage where I had the friends and the NHS but wasn't tapping into it like I am now, I can look back at that stage and think, if I'd maybe done that sooner, I could have got to the position I'm in mentally now much, much earlier than I eventually did.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
The last thing I'd tell you from my side of things is, I wasn't aware of your work, and I am now because I did a bit of research. Yeah. And I'd truly really jealous of your work, because I'm a massive Billy Connolly fan as well, and I love funny stories. The only thing I can do is write shit gags, and I'd love to be able, I would love to be able to tell
I'd love to be able to do that. I think it's that beautiful nature of whatever we see someone else doing is what we wish we were capable of doing. So yeah,
I think you can and you do. I think you're selling yourself short. I think, you said about the gag there and that one, but the times when you were just playing with the audience and holding the pauses and just talking, I really, really enjoyed you. And I think you've got some great stuff to talk about as well.
Absolutely.
Congrats, mate. I think you're a really talented guy, so keep it up.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Johnny, where can our audience find you? Where can we hunt you down? Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat? Give us all the sites.
Yup. Instagram, I am on. He says. Let me just remind myself what I am on there, because that's how organised I am.
Is this Stalker One Derry Girls?
I am sat down stand up on Instagram.
Sat down stand up on Instagram, lovely.
And there's also Jonny Brook, the Sat Down Stand Up on Facebook as well. So if anyone can give that a like, that'll be minx. It would be nice to actually have some people that do actually like it.
Absolutely. Well, I think after today's pod, you're definitely going to get 4 from us. We just want to really thank you for your time. I think you've shared some really poignant thoughts, helped a lot of people that will probably be listening alone today. Just kind of get out there, just be aware that there is people.
Get out there in lockdown. Fuck's sake, Dylan.
Well, you know, they can give people a call, Ben.
Yeah, today, and they exercise as well.
Oh yeah.
That's the one. But honestly, great advice. We definitely want to have you back at some point in the future. So thank you for your time today, Jonny.
Great. Absolutely brilliant. Really, really brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
That's great.
Cheers all.